Luckin Coffee is that Chinese company that was supposed to be a Starbucks killer.
A company faked $310 million in sales, got caught and filed for bankruptcy. 5 years later, they became China's biggest coffee chain. Luckin, a brand that crushed Starbucks with 26,000 stores. This might be the most insane business comeback ever. Or the most terrifying.
It's 2020. A company gets caught fabricating $310 million in sales. The CEO gets fired. The stock crashes 80% overnight. They get kicked off the stock exchange. Bankruptcy follows. For any normal company, that's game over. Roll credits. But this isn't a normal company. This is Luckin Coffee. And somehow, against all odds, they didn't just survive, they became China's biggest coffee chain.
So you've grown really fast, in a very short period of time, quite extraordinary.
Crushing Starbucks in their own backyard. How do you come back from corporate fraud so catastrophic it should have ended you? Let me show you the most insane comeback story in business history. Let's rewind to 2017. China, the land of tea. For thousands of years, coffee was basically irrelevant here. Then Starbucks showed up and did something brilliant. They didn't just sell coffee. They sold status. Walking around with that green mermaid cup? That meant you'd made it. You were cosmopolitan, modern, successful. By 2017, Starbucks had planted 3,000 stores across China. They owned the market. End of story, right? Absolutely wrong. Because that same year, a scrappy newcomer called Luckin Coffee looked at Starbucks' empire and spotted something everyone else missed. A crack in the armor. And that crack was price. See, Starbucks positioned coffee as a luxury. A treat. Something special you'd grab maybe once or twice a week. But Luckin asked a different question. What if coffee wasn't special? What if it was just Tuesday? They slashed prices by 20 to 30% compared to Starbucks. Suddenly, that daily caffeine hit wasn't a luxury anymore. It was affordable, accessible, normal. But here's where it gets interesting. Luckin wasn't really a coffee company. They were a tech company that happened to sell coffee. And they had a plan that would make a Silicon Valley startup jealous. From day one, Luckin played a completely different game than Starbucks. Starbucks built coffee cathedrals, cozy chairs, ambient music, Instagram-worthy interiors. They wanted you to stay, to linger, to make their store your third place between home and work. Luckin? They didn't care about any of that. Every single order went through their app. No counters. No baristas taking your order. Just a pickup shelf with your name on it. In and out in under 3 minutes. Stores were tiny, sometimes less than 25 square meters. About the size of a large bedroom, but the real genius wasn't the stores. It was the app. Think about how slot machines work. You pull the lever, and sometimes you win big, sometimes small, sometimes nothing. But you never know what's coming next, so you keep pulling. Psychologists call this a variable reward schedule, and it's one of the most addictive patterns in human behavior. Luckin turned coffee into a slot machine. One woman told reporters she'd visited Luckin 2 days in a row just because of the coupons. That's not a customer. That's a daily user. And that's exactly what Luckin wanted. By funneling everything through the app, Luckin collected data on a level Starbucks could only dream of. What you ordered. When you ordered it. Where you were when you ordered. How you responded to different promotions. All of it fed into AI systems that learned your patterns and nudged you at precisely the right moment. It wasn't coffee. It was behavioral engineering. The growth was explosive. In Q1 2018, Luckin had 485,000 customers. 1 year later? 16.9 million. That's 45,000 new customers every single day for an entire year. By the end of 2019, just 2 years after launching, they had over 4,500 stores. More than what Starbucks had built in China over decades. They became the fastest growing coffee chain in the country. $1 billion valuation. And Wall Street ate it up. In May 2019, barely 2 years old, Luckin went public on the Nasdaq. The IPO raised $561 million. Investors were salivating. This was the Chinese tech dream. Disruption. Innovation. Hockey stick growth. The stock soared. Analysts praised their model. The media called them a Starbucks killer. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. In January 2020, a short seller named Muddy Waters Research published something explosive. An anonymous report. And it was damning. The report claimed Luckin was fabricating its numbers. But this wasn't just speculation. Muddy Waters had deployed 92 full-time employees and over 1,400 part-time staff. For 981 days, they sat outside 620 Luckin stores with cameras and clipboards, counting every single customer that walked in and out. The math didn't add up. Not even close. Luckin's stock tanked. But then something interesting happened. The company fired back hard. Called the report misleading and false. Investors wanted to believe. Analysts defended Luckin. The stock rebounded. For a moment, it looked like Luckin might weather the storm. Then April 2020 happened. A whistleblower inside Luckin's finance team leaked a 96-page spreadsheet. Fake invoices. Fabricated sales. All of it documented in painful detail. 2 weeks later, Luckin couldn't hide anymore. They issued a press release. Approximately $310 million of 2019 revenue never existed. Let that sink in. Nearly a third of their reported revenue was completely made up. Phantom sales to phantom customers buying phantom coffee. The stock didn't just drop. It cratered. Down 80% in a single day. $5 billion in market value, gone. The CEO and COO were fired immediately. By June, Luckin was delisted from the Nasdaq. In February 2021, they filed for bankruptcy. For most companies, this is where the story ends. A cautionary tale. A Netflix documentary waiting to happen. But Luckin? They were just getting started. Here's what's absolutely wild. Customers didn't care about the fraud. Think about that for a second. The company admitted to massive accounting fraud. Got kicked off the stock exchange. Filed for bankruptcy. And customers just kept buying coffee. Why? Because the app still worked. The coupons still came. The coffee was still cheap. And frankly, most people ordering a $3 latte don't really care about quarterly earnings reports. Some investors saw this too. While the executives had failed spectacularly, the operating model was actually sound. Real customers. Real transactions. Real coffee. Just fake reports. Private equity firms, including some very smart money, saw an opportunity. They bet not on Luckin's disgraced leadership but on the addiction loop they'd built. Luckin entered bankruptcy protection in the US but kept operating in China. They brought in new leadership. Closed underperforming stores. Slashed costs. And here's where they got really smart. Instead of trying to rebuild their reputation, they doubled down on what actually worked, the gamification. The new leadership introduced an even more sophisticated reward system. Points for every order. Streaks for buying coffee multiple days in a row. Random coupons just for opening the app. Daily check-in bonuses. It was a mobile game that happened to dispense caffeine. Then they added limited edition drink drops. And this is where things got crazy. In 2021, Luckin launched the raw coconut latte. No massive marketing campaign. No billboards. Just a late-night push notification to millions of app users. It became an instant phenomenon. At its peak, Luckin was selling 10 million of these drinks per month. 10 million. But they were just warming up. 2 years later in 2023, they dropped the sauce-flavored latte. A collaboration with Guizhou Maltai, one of China's most iconic liquor brands. On launch day alone, customers ordered 5.4 million cups. So many orders that the app servers crashed. Mobile ordering froze across the entire country for hours. Think about that. A coffee drink so popular it literally broke the internet. These weren't just products. They were events. Cultural moments. And every single one was designed to do one thing: get you back into the app, back into the loop, back into the habit. The store model evolved too. Smaller footprints. Faster service. Higher automation. By 2023, the average Luckin store was pumping out orders in under 3 minutes. It wasn't a place to hang out. It was a vending machine with baristas. And it scaled like wildfire. Early 2024, Luckin hits 13,000 stores in China. Starbucks? Just under 7,000. But store count isn't even the most impressive part. Luckin is beating Starbucks in revenue growth. In daily transactions. In app usage. In every metric that actually matters. And as of 2025, they have over 26,000 locations in China. They're not just competing with Starbucks anymore. They've lapped them. Twice. Starbucks noticed. They tried to respond by mimicking Luckin's tactics. More mobile ordering. More coupons. More promotions. But it feels forced. Like watching your dad try to use TikTok. Because Starbucks built their brand on being a premium experience. A third place. Human connection. Writing your name on cups. But now they're trying to compete on speed and value? It's a massive brand identity crisis. Meanwhile, Luckin is doing what they've always done, just better. More data. More AI. More personalization. More addiction. Then, in September 2025, something fascinating happened. Luckin opened their first US stores. In New York City. The heart of Starbucks' home turf. And they labeled them Store 00001 and 00002. Not Store 1 and Store 2. 5 zeros. That's a statement. That's saying, we're planning for tens of thousands. Now, will Luckin actually succeed in America? That's the billion-dollar question. They face some serious challenges. American coffee culture is way more mature than China was in 2017. The market is saturated with local chains. Dunkin', Peet's, thousands of independent shops. And let's be honest, there's growing skepticism toward Chinese brands in the US right now. Plus, American consumers might not love the cashierless model. One reporter watched someone walk into a Luckin in NYC, realize they couldn't just order at a counter, get frustrated with the app, and walk right back out. That human connection Starbucks talks about? It might actually matter here. Early data from NYC shows Luckin stores are generating about $85,000 per month but need around $92,000 just to break even. They'd need to double their order volume to be profitable. They're taking losses on every store right now. But here's the thing, that's exactly what they did in China. Lose money initially. Build the habit. Let the data accumulate. Then optimize ruthlessly. Bernstein analysts noted that Luckin isn't trying to be profitable on day one. They're trying to build awareness. Get people hooked. Let the app learn your patterns. And eventually, once you're locked into their ecosystem, the profitability comes. It's a long game. And Luckin has proven they know how to play it. So, let's zoom out for a second. This isn't really a story about coffee. It's a story about what happens when you apply tech startup thinking to a traditional industry. When you prioritize behavioral data over brand experience. When you turn a product into a habit loop so powerful that even catastrophic corporate fraud can't break it. Luckin Coffee committed one of the biggest frauds in recent business history. They should be dead. Forgotten. A cautionary tale in business school case studies. Instead, they're thriving, dominating, expanding globally. And that raises a bigger question, what happens when this model gets exported to everything else? They turned coffee into a game you don't even realize you're playing. And once you're in the loop, once the app knows your patterns, once you've collected enough streaks and points and coupons, walking away feels like leaving free money on the table. That's not selling coffee. That's reprogramming behavior. So the next time you open an app and see a notification for a limited time deal, or a streak you don't want to break, or a reward that's almost within reach, remember, someone engineered that feeling. Someone designed that loop. Someone is betting that you won't be able to resist. And if a disgraced coffee chain that committed massive fraud can come back from the dead using these tactics, what else is impossible? That's the real story of Luckin Coffee. Not that they beat Starbucks. But they proved you can engineer addiction, survive catastrophe, and turn human behavior into a business model. And honestly, that should probably terrify us a little bit.